Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 12, Episode 90. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us here on this Monday, this one day after Super Bowl 56, where the LA Rams defeat the Cincinnati Bengals 23-22, capture this year's Super Bowl. Happy Valentine's Day to everybody as well. But Dave, good game last night. Not an all-time game, but I think for Super Bowls, as far as they go, to have a pretty close game down to the wire is a solid way to end the football season. Yeah,
you think back to the year before and the blowout that the Buccaneers had against the Chiefs, and obviously these last couple of weeks of the playoffs have included some really close games, and obviously a couple of overtime games and all like that. And towards the end there last night, I was starting to think this one might go to overtime too, but the Bengals couldn't pull off the comeback after the late Los Angeles Rams score, and there you go. And not the best officiated game, I don't think, especially when it came to the second half. And I'm sure we'll talk about a couple of key calls in that game or non-calls, and just kind of weird to let it get. You get that far and you choose the best officiating crew that you possibly can. And then a lot of the talk today, I think probably in the talk radio circles, is going to be, some missed calls and some non-calls and those kind of things there. But interesting game for sure. 43 points total. That went under, I think, the number. But the Rams did not cover the 4.5 points they were favored by. The Bengals actually, if you bet on the Bengals plus the points, you obviously won that one there. So thoughts on the game?
Yeah, I think it came down to two elements, and it's no big surprise here. So my analysis probably won't be unique, but quarterback play and pass rush. And if you have those two elements, you have the foundation of a potential, strong, competitive Super Bowl contending team. You saw Stafford make plays on that last drive, that long, 15-play drive. I think they ran the ball, 2 times or something like that, and they went tempo, they went hurry up, and it didn't allow McVay to, call those odd second down runs he was so seemingly committed to throughout the entire game for some weird reason. And so Stafford made those plays, Cup made those plays as well. And then the pass rush at the end, where, the second half, the Rams really kicked things up. They got 6 sacks in the second half. And of course, Aaron Donald making the last 2 plays, that one run stop on third down, then the fourth down pressure to force the incompletion. And so when you have those two very important but foundational things, you got a shot. And that's, to me, the difference in this game.
Yeah, your stars came alive, right? And talking about Cup, the Triple Crown winner, I guess you could call it, when it came to the receiver position this season, and obviously Aaron Donald, the star of that defense, along with Von Miller. He made 2 really key back-to-back plays there at the end of that thing. One was just an incredible run stop, pushing the defender back, and then really tackling P. Ryan from behind there, and then, as you stated, the very next play to get the pressure on Joe Burrow and forced to throw essentially kind of a Hail Mary-ish type, just winging around and see where it goes type of pass on fourth down. It fell incomplete, ended up being 2 huge plays in the game, albeit right at the end of it there. So and then Matthew Stafford, look, I mean, that 20-yard play on that dig route to Cooper Kupp, that was some great quarterbacking right there, right?
Yeah.
You look at that thing from behind the line of scrimmage, end zone view. Now I think a lot of people are saying, well, they missed a false start, blah blah blah. But I'm just looking at the play from the snap on there. Just a great job of overall quarterbacking and staying in the pocket, using your eyes to maneuver defenders and move that middle of the field defender out of there, and just a great drilled pass right to Kupp there. And boy, when's the last time you saw a 12-yard dig to a Steelers wide receiver over the middle of the field? That's the kind of stuff that the Steelers miss. Look, in the NFL these days, I think you need quarterbacks that can not only make plays, off schedule, but you need some that can make some on schedule as well too. And that was definitely an example of that one. I think Booger McFarland's has been busy criticizing, saying, well, they did all this to get rid of Goff and bring in Matthew Stafford. Don't really see a difference. Look at that one play.
Yeah.
That's your difference right there. I felt the Rams just tried too much of a concerted effort to try to run the football in that game, as you stated, a lot of second down runs. And man, this league now is not you want to try to maybe establish the run early and see if it works, but the whole goal is just to get yourself in a position maybe to have a couple possession leads so you can run the ball late. It's always been my kind of philosophy on that. So some awkward kind of play calling in that game. I don't begrudge any of kind of the trick plays that we saw both sides of the both teams in that game, because you execute. Nobody's talking about those trick plays, and obviously that one from Cooper Kupp missing the pass high to Matthew Stafford. It's easy to analyze that and say, why would you do that? But if he puts that pass on target, now I think Stafford probably going to take a pretty good lick on that play. Maybe short of the first down marker, but it's a very results biased play on that. But I thought the entertaining game overall. I hated to see the officiating go the way it did kind of there in the second half.
Yeah, it was pretty, cleanly called game through the first, 3 quarters. In the fourth quarter, things got tight there at the end. I thought the Logan Wilson holding call was a bad call. I thought the one Apple was called for was probably the right call to make, but never want to see the officiating get involved there on a, game-winning drive like that. But yeah, just the job that Cooper Kupp did, especially with Odell Beckham Jr. going down to that one, all the attention being shown to Kupp and him still making plays late in that game. I mean, that's the definition of those big-time players, when the ball's going their way and they still make plays. And so, I think it was less about the scheme in that game. It was more about just the Rams' top talent winning out in that one. Is kind of how it's the old, Jimmys and the Joes, not the X's and the O's, is kind of what defined this game.
Yeah, you get in key games like that, you expect your best players to rise to the occasion to make the plays, and that's essentially exactly what happened in the final 6-7 minutes of that game, I guess, when it came to the Rams. Now the Higgins 75-yard touchdown pass there to open up the second half. Does he make that play without face masking Ramsey? Probably not. That was a huge missed call on that play, and I think missed a defensive offsides kind of early. Was that the first? Was that the Odell Beckham touchdown pass? It might have been.
There was one on Donald, I think, where he lined up on like a third or fourth down.
But there was one play where they the Rams early in the game, or no, there's one I forget which side it was, but they blew a defensive offsides early in that game there, and then obviously the face mask on Higgins. There's a couple other maybe false starts that I think maybe they missed there in that game as well too. And once again, you just hate to see the officiating, especially in the second half of that contest, and especially on plays where there was a score, end up being something that's going to be a talking point.
Yeah, again, some of the calls at the end of the game weren't my favorite. I try not to focus too much on the officiating, just because I like to look at the game itself, and the refs, they're going to make their calls good, bad, and what can you do about it? But yeah, I mean, I guess I've seen worse from the officials, but certainly have seen better as well. But yeah, just bigger picture, the Bengals, as I'm sure they've found out and known for the entire season, they have to upgrade that offensive line. That interior line is just a mess. They just got dominated, pressure the entire game. It's a minor miracle they got to this point. I think Burrow was sacked a total of 20-something times in the playoffs. I mean, just unbelievable numbers there, record numbers. 70 times, I think, for the entire season, regular season, postseason, third most of all time. That is the number one priority. But the good news is, beyond the offensive line, there's not a lot of big holes for this Bengals team. They're pretty solid everywhere else. Logan Wilson, a heck of a game. Secondary's decent. We got to upgrade over Eli Apple, obviously, but it's really a clear effort on what the Bengals need to fix.
Yeah, I would think they attack offensive line, and I think they would probably need probably like to get a young cornerback again to help out in that secondary there. I would think those would be two main focuses for them. They could probably use another tight end in that offense. Look, I'm a big Uzama fan, but he could probably use some help.
I think he's a free agent as well, I believe.
That might be something to look at as well too there. Yeah. So I think tight end, offensive line, and a cornerback, without drilling too far down into their roster might be things that they look for in this draft. They're looking really sweet at the wide receiver position. I know that. And boy, Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. Those are going to be at least two players that the Steelers have to contend with here for the next few years until those contracts are up there. But it doesn't look like the knee injury that Burrow suffered is going to be, long term. When he went down, the way he was grabbing that thing, the way he was in pain, I thought, oh man, that's 2 years in a row he's tore something, going to go out. But I don't think the injury's that serious there. But they definitely have some offensive components there. And if they could give Burrow a better offensive line to work with, that offense will be even more potent.
Yeah, my terrible take today reflects this comment. My first thought when the Bengals lost was they'll be back next year. But then my second thought was maybe not, because the AFC is just so competitive. I mean, it's hard to really, anoint one team as like the team for the next 5 years, with the Chiefs and the Bills and the Bengals and other teams kind of really emerge into that type of level. And so this AFC is going to be really muddy. And since you give them credit, they went through the ringer to make it to this point, beating some really good teams. And so, it's just going to be hard to get back there. But Burrow's young, and they have the foundation, foundational guys there. I think it's a good team. It's an underrated defense. It'll improve. They'll get better. And so they're not going to, go quietly for sure.
Look, I mean, you solved the quarterback issue. That's half the battle, or over half the battle.
Yeah, 90% of the battle. Yeah.
And as long as he stays healthy and they're able to throw out some sort of decent form of a pass defense out there, look, and the adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat came through last night. It took until the end there, but once again, it just shows how important both sides of the football are when it comes to pass defense and pass offense. There, you got to keep that defensive number, under 6 if at all possible, and you got to have that offensive number over 6.5 or 6.7. And if you're able to do that, any team I think at that point has a chance to compete. But I mean, you look back to the Bengals, and why there's eternal optimism probably around the NFL is because they were a team that were 4-11-1 the season before, and lo and behold, they're in the Super Bowl the next year. Now, obviously, having a young quarterback in the second year, a former first-round quarterback at that, plays a big part in that, and that's one of the biggest obstacles that the Steelers have right now is they need a franchise quarterback, and even if they got one through the draft, a rookie one this year, what are the odds of that player being able to to get all things accomplished in that first season there? So it was kind of the perfect storm. The way they were built were obviously mostly through the draft with a few kind of key free agents, if you will. And Mike Hilton obviously being one of those, and Awuzie, I think what was another kind of free agent addition of theirs as well too. But when you look at look at how they're built, and Trey
Hendrickson,
Henderson was another one there. So if you smartly add through free agency, and then you have kind of the drafts that they had. Remember, Jesse Bates was one of their draft picks, and wasn't Von Bell one of their originally drafted players, or no?
I don't believe so. Wasn't he with the Saints?
Okay.
Yeah, let me double check.
So
but that's another sign.
Free agent. Not a free agent sign there, but I know Pratt was, and Hubbard,
Wilson,
and Wilson are all draft picks, and Higgins and Chase and Boyd is a former draft pick of theirs as well too, and Mixon, and obviously Burrow there. So they they kind of did things the way the Steelers normally like to do things, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, give credit to Duke Tobin, who's really put together a good roster. That the defense was underrated overall. Now they just need an indoor practice facility, and they can really hang with the big boys. I think they've earned that at this point. But yeah. I'll just give you 2 more stats to kind of sum up this game to me. I talk about red zone play so much and the importance of winning in the red zone because teams and offenses are so good. They're going to move the ball. They're going to get yards. It's just, can you hold teams to field goals? And the Rams were 3-3 in the red zone in this game. The Bengals were 1-3. And so that's a defining aspect of this game to me. And then I'll toot my horn a little bit here about my old 25 season, takeaway stats. The Rams 25 takeaways this year. So I know they lost a turnover battle last night, 2-0. So it didn't really come to fruition in the game itself, but that overall seasonal trend stays true.
There you go. So Justin, when we look at this thing, a lot of simple type stats are still, are still, can be counted on there. How many turnovers did the Bengals have, or takeaways did the Bengals have on the season?
21.
Okay, so they were a little short there, obviously there. And was 25 the number that has been running supreme for the most part?
That's the one I started with. In past years, it's been maybe closer to 20. So, but 25 was kind of the number I believe I had started with, and so it at least rang true for this season.
And look, they were the Bengals were only 3 of 14 on third down. And what were they on fourth down? Not very good, I don't think.
Yeah, I know they had 1 or 2 conversions. I don't have the number in front of me.
1 of 3 in the game. So they had 2. You look at the overall talk stat in this one. Traditionally, it was 4-4. But I don't know how you want to treat those two turnovers on downs. That ended up if you want to count those as turnovers, then the Rams won +2, and the age old thing about +2, if you +2 or better 80% of the time, you're going to win the football game. Now, obviously, turnovers on downs aren't traditionally included in that, but I think you got to start maybe taking a hard look at those kind of things as being takeaways, if you will, because it is a takeaway. You're taking a football away on downs, and it's not at the end of a punt or anything like that. So interesting the way that played out there. And once again, third down, the Bengals were not good on third down. They convert a couple of those. Interesting to see how that game goes.
Yeah, it's a great point. Situational football, third down, red zone. Huge numbers in that one, and the Rams pass rush certainly played an impact on some of those. How many of those third down conversions or third down failures were sacks? I mean, probably 3 or 4 of them. And so that certainly ruled the day. And so it's a question now, after the victory and the smoke kind of clears, is retirements. Andrew Whitworth probably retires. Aaron Donald. I can't believe the reports about Donald. Wow. He didn't. He certainly didn't refute those reports when asked about it right after the Super Bowl win. So I'd still be surprised if he actually did walk away, but he's got his ring, so maybe he does. We've seen some, players retire earlier in their careers as opposed to later. And even Sean McVay's had rumors about retiring. That doesn't seem to be happening this season, but he's a guy who probably won't be coaching as long as maybe even Mike Tomlin has. And so that's just a lot of, subplots to the Super Bowl win for the Rams.
Absolutely. And it was a little bit unique to hear that come out of Rodney Harrison's mouth or during that pregame about Aaron Donald. How long has he been in the league now?
It's been a while. I don't know, 8 years. I mean, he's been in the league.
Time flies, doesn't it?
It really does, yeah. I think about 8 years, I want to say. 2014, he came in the league.
Okay, all right. Well, I mean, and he's been Defensive Player of the Year more than a few times, and obviously now a Super Bowl champion. Is he? And he's 30 years old now, right? Or he's fixing to be 31, I think, in May. I mean, Is he a first ballot Hall of Fame guy now?
Yes, he was even before the Super Bowl. But yes, first ballot, one of maybe the best defensive player of his generation.
And money wise, he should be set, right?
You would think so, yeah. I mean, so if he wants to retire, certainly you wouldn't hold that against him. But he's still that dominant level of player. It's like Barry Sanders retiring. It's just like, man, you can still play, but if you want to go, you want to go.
Right. And Whitworth, what a story with him. Obviously, a long time Bengals player. Man, he can still play too. You know it, and he's 40, right?
40 years old.
I mean, just unreal. So yeah, they're going to look a lot different regardless. What's going to happen with Odell next season? Do you really want that that around that much longer, if you know what I'm saying.
He played really well for him. I think he was a really good presence. The injury that was a torn ACL is going to obviously impact his week 1 availability.
Right. So going to be interesting to see what happens with him. And, they're going to have some holes that they have to fill too. But, once again, they have the franchise quarterback. And, will they have the coach still in Sean McVay? It's going to be interesting. And, look at how they were built, though, as opposed to the way the Bengals were built. A lot more additions, especially, they made, they acquired Beckham, obviously off the street there. But traded for Von Miller there, and obviously made the trade for the franchise quarterback in Matthew Stafford. So it goes to show that there's not just one way to do this thing and get to the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you got to appreciate and respect their aggressive all-in mentality, and they trade for Jalen Ramsey as well, and so they made a lot of key moves along the way. My last question for you, Dave, about the Super Bowl, about the Rams. Matthew Stafford, we'll ask this question about any time a quarterback wins a Super Bowl. Is he a Hall of Famer now? How much does this win change those odds?
Wow, that's a great question, especially in light of all these, the 2004 class now finally, all gone there, and then Brady on top of it. My first inclination right now is to say no. Matthew Stafford is not a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Yeah, well, I'm not saying for just not even just first ballot, just overall. Do you think he's going to get in the Hall of Fame? Relatively early.
I think he needs one more, to be honest with you.
You think he needs one more?
Yeah, I think he need that. That's just, and I haven't drilled down into his stats or anything like that. Does longevity qualify you? I mean, has he forever been known as one of, let's say, the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL throughout his playing days? He might be right now at this very moment.
Mm-hmm.
But during his years in the Rams, it's not the Hall of very good, right?
Yeah, it's a tough one because he's had so much good competition around him, played in an era with so many great quarterbacks. I mean, he's always been a really good quarterback in some tough situations on some bad Lions teams. And obviously his career will extend out at least a couple more years, so he'll be able to add to that resume. If you made me answer right now because I'm hedging a bit, and anytime you hedge, in my opinion, that means no. And so I don't think he's quite there. He'll certainly be in that conversation. But I just off the top, I know it's so fresh, but I still say no to that question.
I would the same. If you just caught me off the street all of a sudden, hit me with answer this in 5 seconds or less, I would say no. He's not.
Because when I think Hall of Famer, I think that answer. Immediately. If he's a Hall of Famer, it's no doubt. Yes, Aaron Donald. Yes, of course, Hall of Famer. Right. Ben. Yes, of course. And Stafford, I go, maybe. And that's kind of your answer right there. Right. But I don't want to take anything away because he's an unbelievable player.
Right. Look, that one, like I said, and he's made a couple of those throws this season. Yeah, mm-hmm. he's made throws like that throughout his career. But really magnified last night that late throw to Kupp and seeing that thing from the end zone view and all like that. So my first inclination is to say no, but if he turns around and wins one more, and goes back to back or something, I think the conversation opens up quite a bit there.
For sure. So those are our thoughts on Super Bowl 56, the last game to be played until August, I guess, until preseason comes back. So, but there'll be a lot of NFL content along the way. All right, Dave.
Are you going to watch any XFL? I will.
Yeah, I might tune in a little bit. Usually, I don't know, I'm pretty bad. I watch the first week. Oh, that's interesting. Then I never watch again. So it's just like, we'll see how it goes for me. I don't watch a lot of TV in general, even, sports obviously, but my TV's just not on a lot.
Yeah, I have. I tell you what, though, I have been trying to open, try to get a little more non-sports into my diet, if you will. The Gemstones on HBO with John
is that good?
Yeah, it actually is a very entertaining show. So I've been watching that, and I like those Star Wars type series and all like that. That Boba Fett's had my interest on the Disney as well too. So those are two the Righteous Gemstones. I've always liked, what's his name, Danny, the guy that was in Eastbound and Down. Danny, what's his last name?
Is this the guy that was Kenny Powers?
Yeah, the guy that plays Kenny Powers.
Yeah, I don't know his name, but I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, that guy's absolutely fantastic in these kind of shows there, and always have kind of like John Goodman and all.
John Goodman's great. Love John Goodman.
So I've been and I didn't catch that right from the start and all like that, but I've sort of picked it up the last couple weeks since the Steelers have been out of it on and that's obviously on HBO. I can catch that when I lay in bed or whatnot, and then the Boba Fett I've been watching that as well too.
Speaking of programming, I should mention, Dave, you'll be going on a much-deserved vacation here starting Wednesday. Your trip around the world, I think you're Carmen San Diego-ing right? Yeah. All over the place here. So Dave will not be on the show the rest of the week. And I guess next week, I'm not entirely sure what the timetable there is, but we'll try to fill in probably with one more show either Wednesday or Friday, depending on how active the Steelers news cycle is. Maybe Josh Carney and I will hop on for a short, mini podcast, mini-sode sort of thing to discuss something later this week. But just want to at least put that note out there. Dave will be on a much-deserved little West Coast tour the next couple days.
Yep. I coming to a city near you, more than likely. But my wife wants me to kind of try to get away from the site for a little bit. We'll see how I'm able to do that. Probably not so good, but anyway, I'm sure it'll be in good hands with you guys and Josh and whatever you guys can come up with podcast wise. I'm sure will be great.
Yeah, and so you're stuck with me though for at least another couple of days though, Dave. Yep, and so we'll jump into the Steelers side of things. Obviously, not a ton of big news happening since we last spoke on Friday. The biggest piece of information, though, on Friday night was, according to NFL Network's Tom Pelissero, the Steelers plan to interview Bucs Vice President of Player Personnel, John Spytek, for their GM job. So that's another name added to a pretty lengthy list of candidates. So far, don't know exactly when that interview is scheduled to take place. It may have already happened by now, of course. So John Spytek added to the list of players, or people, I should say, the Steelers are looking at.
With them not naming someone yet, is this something that's going to carry on for a while? And or in other words, are you surprised that we don't have a decision yet?
No, I'm not surprised. I mean, maybe I'm wrong in this. I didn't think they were going to announce anything till after the draft and not make an announcement prior to the draft. Maybe I'm wrong in assuming that, but that was always kind of what I thought was going to happen.
Okay, and if so, I guess there's nothing that prevents you from keeping on adding to the interview list here. And is that something that we're going to? I guess is that something that we're going to continue to have on up through the next? I mean, the draft's still a long way away. I mean, the start of the new league year obviously is close, but the draft's obviously several weeks after that.
Yeah, I mean, eventually they're not going to be interviewing people probably like in mid-April or something. At that point, you've gone through the pool of candidates you're going to go through. But the one benefit of waiting on this GM hire was that you had a lot of time and could talk to a lot of people, and you're not competing with anybody because everyone else already has their GM. So what is your impression? Did you think this team was going to make their announcement prior to the draft and then
Yeah, I kind of had the feeling that by now we would know, to be honest with you.
Yeah, my impression was going to be we wouldn't know until after the draft. I know that's when the change will happen, but I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on that. I don't have a great feel, but that was always kind of my assumption.
And let's see, here we are on the 14th and Wednesday. It'll be 4 weeks to go until the start of the new league year, if you can believe it. So things will start happening real fast. I think after the next 2 weeks or so, here is when things will start picking up speed and might see some contract terminations as Kevin Colbert likes to call them, and then the combine will be here in a couple weeks as well too. So I'll be back in time, I think, just to start to help you covering that as well too. Very exciting.
Yeah, a little bit on Spytek. He's been with the Buccaneers since 2016. Had previously been with Denver as a national and area scout from 2013 to 2015. Also worked with the Browns, the Eagles, and so he's kind of bounced around quite a bit. And apparently also from the same hometown as the Watts, as TJ and Derek in Pewaukee, Wisconsin. So there's a little something there. Yeah,
I still feel like this is going to be an inside move, but once again, the Steelers could surprise us and go a different direction there.
Yeah, we'll see. Just the way they surprised with Tomlin over, Russ Grimm. I still think it'll be internal. I think logistically that makes the most amount of sense. And I think they have two very qualified candidates in Brandon Hunt and Omar Khan. But we'll wait and see. And John Spytek can throw his hat into the ring. All right, Dave. Ryan Shazier had spoken the other day, kind of that Radio Row pre-Super Bowl, conversations, interviews that take place out there, and had some interesting comments on Devin Bush and the state of the Steelers and the future of the quarterback position. On Devin Bush, he really said that if his advice to Devin Bush, and he admitted that he hasn't talked to Bush in quite some time, and so it's not like they're in constant communication. But his advice to Bush was to really get in that film room and become a better player through the film. And Shazier said that's what he did to improve, and that kind of allowed him to slow down a little bit because he could see what was coming a lot easier, and he wouldn't have to play as frenetic, I guess, was basically the way Shazier was summing things up. And so he did acknowledge about the injury that Bush went through, and Shazier went through injuries with his knee, not as severe as torn ACLs, but could relate to the difficulty of that, not trusting yourself, trusting your knee all the time, but really seemed to harp on the point to Bush to really get in that film room as much as possible, and that'll be the thing that transforms your game.
And we don't know how much Bush is or isn't in the film room, and really neither does Ryan, right?
I would assume so, unless maybe he's hearing something from somebody, because the way he said it felt like maybe he knew something that he wasn't saying, fully, but yeah, none of us know for sure. And I think, again, Bush, to his credit, at least from a work standpoint, getting his body ready to be ready for week one, coming off that torn ACL, that's a testament to his work ethic to just be in that position. But from a film aspect, none of us, at least I don't know what his habits are.
I don't think it can hurt. I'll tell you that. To spend more time in the film room there. We know to hear a guy like T.J. Watt talk about, in these last couple of days since winning Defensive Player of the Year, about how much time he spends studying film and how really essentially he'll only take, I don't know what he said the other day, like 2 weeks off, I think, of studying film because he studies so much during the season there. But that guy's constantly trying to find an edge any way he can, and that's through the film room. And it's hard, as you and I being outsiders, if you will. We don't know how much he is or isn't spending in there. Now, as you state, it kind of feels like maybe somebody has told Ryan Shazier, but you're never going to hear me say, don't study film.
Right.
I'm constantly studying film, and I don't see how you don't as a professional, there. I think there's a lot to be gained by doing so. It's a big, this next season is going to be a big one for Devin Bush, obviously, because we don't expect the team to pick up the 5th-year option on him. And if indeed that's the case, it becomes a contract year for Devin Bush. And, it's his it'll be an opportunity to hit that first big payday for him. If he turns things around and starts playing like a first-round draft pick, well, he could force the Steelers' hands to either put the franchise tag on him, or he could be the big off-the-ball linebacker prize in free agency for a team next year and make his earning that way. So this is a big offseason and obviously big, 2022 season on tap for Devin Bush. And the Steelers aren't going to, I don't think, move on from him. I think it'd be silly at this point to give up on him, but you got to be very, very concerned with what you saw, and not only that, with you added a guy in Joe Schobert who's probably not long for this roster right now either. You don't have much behind him either, so you really have a lot of eggs in that Devin Bush basket, if you will, at least when it comes to the start of 2022. I mean, even if you spent a I don't know, 3rd, 4th round draft pick or sooner on that position, again, it's hard to imagine that player coming in right away and being the contributor that you would want him to be right out of the chute there. So I've been down on Bush for quite a while there. It doesn't mean I don't like the kid and all like that, but I mean, when you go back and look at kind of how his attitude changed last offseason, as my old man would say, boy, it's time to get your mind right. And I think that's where Devin Bush really needs to take a long, hard look at things and does he want, to be in the NFL another 5 years? Because if he does, how he plays this next season will probably go a long way in determining whether or not he will be. If he has a season similar to what he had in 2021, he's going to have 1 foot out of the league already.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And again, we don't know exactly what Bush's, work habits are and film study process is, but there's really no such thing as watching too much film. And so that'll just improve your game and allow you to react quicker and play to your, athleticism that we know that Bush still has, even coming off the knee injury. And so I think Shazier's advice there is really strong, really important. Hopefully Bush at least hears those comments.
You look at a player too that a kid like Logan Wilson made in the Super Bowl, shooting that gap. When's the last time you seen Bush kind of make a play like that?
Yeah,
that was what was running through my head when Logan made that play. I gotta be honest with you, my mind went, man.
Right. And it's not like Wilson's more athletic than Devin Bush. Right. It's not. It's just the processing and reading the play, and that because if you're thinking, you're playing slow. It doesn't matter what your time is. If you're thinking out there and you're not reading the play, then you're going to play slow.
I mean, that I got to admit, that's one of the first things that ran through my head when I saw Logan make that play.
The 55 he wears, too, probably doesn't help either.
Yeah, I was thinking to myself, man, it'd be nice to see a Steelers linebacker make a play like that off the ball, But huge offseason and obviously 2022 season. And, I root for him because, as we've said several times, especially the way the Steelers do things, is – they like to build through the draft, and it really, really hurts this franchise when they have maybe a year. You're going to miss occasionally on players. I mean, that's going to happen, I think. But you have a couple of them miss in a row. That really, really hurts.
Yeah.
And they need him to at least be half of kind of what the player that maybe they thought he would be that they traded up to get several years ago. They need him to be that player in 2022. At least play like he did maybe in his rookie season.
Mm-hmm. I know we had mentioned the name during the Senior Bowl roundtable. What was that, last week? But the one guy who really feels like a Steeler to me is LSU's Damone Clark, like a day 2 guy, 2nd or 3rd round pick. Love the kid, love the story, the growth development, the Power 5, the leadership, the communication, just all those things I think really makes me feel like, and obviously we're sitting here, Valentine's Day, we're a long ways away, but watch out for Damone Clark on day 2 for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
All right. Now, hey, you're not going to get an argument out of probably many people listening to this thing because once again, the only way Joe Schobert is in black and gold come week 1 is if he takes a hell of a pay cut.
Yeah. A big pay cut.
And assuming he's not back. I mean, what do you have? What do you have at the position there? I mean, and for people saying, well, you got Buddy Johnson. Okay, well, what do you know about Buddy Johnson to this point?
Yeah, not much. 6 snaps on defense last year. And I did like Johnson coming out, but he's a 4th round pick, and that's not going to stop me from being aggressive about adding to the position. And Schobert, I understand, was in a tough situation, getting traded late in the summer. It's a lot to handle, and they put a lot on his plate. But even if he takes a pay cut, if you're not a good linebacker at $8 million, even if you're not a good linebacker at $2 million, you're still not a good linebacker. It's still hurting your team. And so I think it's reasonable to assume he would be better in year 2 in Pittsburgh, but how good is that better going to be is a question that's tough to answer.
Right, exactly.
But yeah, Clark's a name that I think Steelers fans should start, watching out for. And I might do some sort of breakdown or video on that in the near future. Dave,
and look, those off the ball inside guys too kind of get pushed down for whatever reasons. So where do you have him kind of? It's still early in this, but you have him slotted kind of as a late 3rd round, 4th round kind of guy.
Yeah, I don't know for sure. I've been calling it day 2. I could see it as early as the Steelers 2nd round pick. So I think,
wow.
Yeah, what is that going to be, like 50-something overall? I don't know exactly where to slot him. I'm just saying day 2, so 2nd, 3rd round is kind of where I'm putting it at.
Okay.
Dave, I did an article this morning, and I mentioned this last week on new Steelers receivers coach Frisbee Jackson, and I got kind of deeper into his philosophy and some of the videos that were in podcast interviews he's done over the past 8 years. So an article up on Steelers Depot that goes through all that. I'm not going to go through everything point by point. But overall, I was pretty impressed. And I think what's interesting about Frisbee Jackson is that he was a quarterback in high school and early in his college career at Northern Illinois. Now, he'll admit, and the stats show it, he was not a very good quarterback in college, and they moved him to receiver, and he became a really good receiver at Western Illinois when he transferred. But I think the fact that he has that quarterback perspective is important and something he says is valuable in teaching his players the why and what the quarterback is thinking and what reads are and stuff like that. So I think that's one interesting element of his background, his resume, is having that quarterback perspective to teach wide receivers.
What do you think was the one of the main things that the Steelers wide receiver group lacked these last two seasons?
Especially I would say this past year, detail. I think Tyler Wise has pointed out really well about some of the lowest blockers, detail in some of the effort plays, missing hot reads and stuff like that. So and then probably just nuanced stuff in terms of the actual receiver play. So that's kind of a vaguer term to use, I suppose, detail, but I felt like they really were a little sloppy.
And yeah, Tyler did a great job of showing some misses, some missed hots and stuff like that as well too, and obviously look, one of the things coming out of the season was Deonte Johnson in those drops resurfacing there. They have an interesting decision to make with him this offseason, right? And I don't know if it's slam dunk with him. We've already kind of hit on it a little bit there, but this is a kid in Deonte Johnson I think is going to be looking for at least around $16 million per, and probably the first 2 years of that guaranteed there. And the Steelers don't have a long history of paying that top 10 wide receiver money on a first contract. First re-up as well too there. So had Deonte not gone through had the drops and all kind of resurface late last season, is there much discussion in his future? I mean, I don't know which way it's going to go with him. I mean, you could look, he has one of the best get-offs in the NFL. His ability to separate off the line is right up there with tops in the league. And his route running overall, I think is fine. He can get separation that way as well too. I mean, extreme separation there, but it all comes down to, you got to still catch the football there. So, I'm not 100% convinced just yet that the Steelers are going to extend him this offseason.
Yeah, I don't know which way it'll go. It obviously depends on, demands and market value and stuff like that. But the drops, while, you don't want to see them and they were disappointing, way to end the year, wouldn't prevent me from signing Deonte Johnson long-term. I think, he had a really good year overall. He's a really prototypical X receiver in this offense, and you want to keep good receiver talent around for this new quarterback chapter, a rookie or a bridge guy, whoever that guy may be this year and into the next couple of years. So I wouldn't have a lot of hesitation. He's a really hard worker. He'll get better. And so, I don't think I have any concerns about those areas of his game.
Right. It's not really a money issue. It's just whether or not you want to pay the market value for him. Yeah,
well, it's a question of, is he asking for market? Is he asking for more? I know there's reports that he's asking for maybe market, but if he's asking for more, it just might get tough to do to justify and fit those things in. But if he's asking for market, then I think you pay him.
Look, when you look at the wide receiver, and we'll have to see how many of these guys maybe drop out between now and – because, look, even if you sign him to an extension, that's probably not going to happen until later in the summer, right?
Right.
Just the way the Steelers kind of do things here. I mean, you look at guys like Robert Woods, and is Robert Woods, what's his future right now? $16.25 million new money average, and he is 3rd, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. He's like 11th overall. Mike Evans, I think, is 10th at $16.5 million. You have to think, you would think, I mean, when you go back to that draft class alone with Deonte Johnson, you look at his total number of receptions, and I think he leads. I don't think there's a receiver that has more catches than him since his rookie season, right? Or at least from that draft class.
Right.
And I think that's how it's measured. How I measured it last time is the draft class in whole. Now, obviously, there's receivers around the league better than him, but I'm thinking Deonte's going to want at least top 10 money. And if not top 10 money, he's probably going to want top 15 money. And even top 15 money puts him right at the 16 million new money average mark. So I think that's the floor at where you start with at him. There's no way he's going to look at a guy like Cortland Sutton who's making 15 million that's just right outside the top 15 and say, yeah, I'll take a little less than that, and Jarvis Landry at 15.1. Now Cooper Kupp at 15.75. That's a bargain right now, right? And Adam Thielen at 16 point. In other words, I think the floor of this thing's at 16 million. And I think I've said as much for a couple of weeks now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to say I think you've documented that pretty well, and so we'll see what happens. It's probably a conversation that'll come up more in the summer. But just to get back to Frisbee Jackson, again, it's hard to tell, exactly what kind of coach he is and what coach he'll be and the impact he'll have. But I was overall impressed by the things that I had read and watched, and just seems like a really good coach, a really good teacher with that quarterback perspective that I think is going to be important and valuable. And last thing on Jackson, he was the Baylor receivers coach for 2018, 2019. He coached a couple guys that are interesting there. Denzel Mims had a really good season under him, and he's struggled mightily with the Jets and might be a trade or release candidate this offseason. So that's a name to keep in mind. And the other name to keep in mind, Jalen Hurd. Frisbee Jackson praised the heck out of Jalen Hurd in separate occasions, at separate times, separate interviews, saying he was literally the hardest working practice player he's ever been around as a player or as a coach. Said he would be literally, quote, physically exhausted at the end of each practice. And so I know Hurd has had the world's worst injury luck, like a Senquez Golson level of injuries. He has not played an NFL game in 3 years, might even have some longer-term knee stuff. I'm not 100% sure, but he got released by the 49ers in November. And so he's a big guy. Everyone's trying to find like a Deebo Samuel kind of dude that I think would fit well in Canada's offense. And so obviously Hurd is a dart throw, no expectations. But if anyone's going to recommend, Jalen Hurd, it might be Frisbee Jackson. And so this dude's got to pass a physical and be healthy and all those things, of course. But that's a name I think Steelers fans should be at least watching for and thinking about, Jalen Hurd.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see what this wide receiver room looks like, right? Because
be different.
James Washington, we don't think is coming back. It's going to be a 50-50 call on Juju. I think what Juju, if there's one team that really wants Juju out there in free agency, I think he's gone. I don't think it's a slam dunk that he's gone. I think he's got about a 50-50 shot at return. But even so, what kind of he wants a 4-year contract. I'm not convinced he's going to get that 4-year contract this offseason, and especially from the Steelers. We'll see. But I mean, this could be a turnover in that room where both Washington and Juju are gone. And you should obviously have at least, I don't know, Jeremy Fowler thinks that they might trade Claypool, but I don't see how you do that unless it involves some sort of round one trade up or anything like that. I mean, I think at a minimum, you're looking at guys like Ray McLeod's also an unrestricted guy, but you can get him back for next to nothing, I would think. So at least you'd have a base of McLeod, Claypool, and Deonte to work with. But, who else is going to be in that wide receiver room? The two extra guys. I think that they're going to go into draft after one of them, because they obviously didn't draft a wide receiver last year. For them to go 2 years back to back without drafting a wide receiver would be quite unusual, right? Even for them. But that leaves one other position open. Do they go out and get one of those, one of those former Baylor guys? I think that's possible. And then you throw in guys like Anthony Miller on into the mix and let those guys compete that way there. So Frisbee going to definitely have a different room, I think, to look to work with.
Yeah, for sure. And again, the Baylor guys, they're they wouldn't be counted for anything. They'd just be 90-man guys in the offseason roster in all likelihood. And so Hurd just has to be healthy, and those kinds of things. But it just, I certainly raise an eyebrow at how the consistent praise that Jackson showed Hurd. And he's an interesting guy. He's a talented guy. It just, the injuries have been killed. He's had a back issue towards ACL, had knee tendonitis. Apparently this year they got him waived by the 49ers. So there's a, no risk or as little risk as possible flyer on a guy like Jalen Hurd. I'm just, I think that'd be a later thing. Probably needs to get healthy and clear, get physically cleared and stuff like that, get medically cleared, but just a name to consider.
You were real high on I right in early in that draft process that year when Mims came out. You were real high on Mims. I remember.
Yeah.
I watched a lot of film on him as well too, and good contested catch guy is what I have on my notes on him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was a big fan of Denzel Mims. Some of the above the rim type plays he made were super impressive. I think one thing I'm learning about the receiver position is to trust those contested catch guys a little bit less, because it's such a difficult position to win consistently in the NFL if you're a contested big body guy that doesn't separate a lot. Now, I think Mims was a better athlete than like a Laquan Treadwell or someone like that, but I'm gravitating more towards the route runner type of guy than like the contested catch basketball power forward looking dude.
And he's only been with them since 2020, right?
Yeah, 2 years, and they've been a pretty tough 2 years. Now, would I trade for Mims? Probably not, because your draft capital is limited and his play has been poor. But if he gets cut, or maybe like a 2023 seventh round pick, something like that, you might do. But I'm not advocating to go out there and trade for Denzel Mims tomorrow. But he did have a lot of success, and Jackson seemed to say that Mims needed to kind of show focus and work ethic and stuff, while he was there at Baylor. And it seemed like Jackson was a good influence on Denzel Mims.
All right, what comparing Ike Hilliard to Frisbee?
Yeah, I got that question today. It's hard to answer because I didn't know a lot about Ike Hilliard as a coach. I really couldn't find much information out there. Both guys, former players. Hilliard's career better than Jackson's, but they both still played, many, many years in the NFL. I think the one difference, like I said, is Jackson's background as a former quarterback is probably a unique perspective to offer that room. But I mean, overall, they're kind of similar resumes in terms of like having a good amount of experience, being relatively young, former players, those kinds of things. But I did like the background that Jackson has as a quarterback that might help those young receivers understand the perspective of offenses as a whole, as they teach and as they learn. All right, Dave, I think you have some numbers on Super Bowl odds, maybe we're already talking about Super Bowl 57, one day after 56 is done. I imagine Pittsburgh's not in great standing in those odds, but what do you have?
Yeah, you'd be correct. Looking at some early lines here, odds makers at Bovada have updated their odds to win Super Bowl 57, and the Buffalo Bills and Kansas City Chiefs are the two leaders there at plus 700. Have the lowest odds there, and obviously both those teams are AFC teams. The team with the lowest in the NFC with the lowest odds are the Rams at plus 900, and then they're followed by the Bengals at plus 1,000, which is essentially 10 to 1 there. Man, you got to go down the list here to get to the Steelers. 40 to 1 odds with the Steelers, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 teams with longer odds than the Steelers. So obviously the odds makers not high on the Steelers, and reasonably so to win Super Bowl 57, which we played in Arizona roughly about a year from now.
Who are the couple teams that have slightly better odds than the Pittsburgh Steelers? Are there any ones that are just gut punches that you normally wouldn't see as having better odds than Pittsburgh?
Let's see. The Miami Dolphins have right at the same odds as the Steelers at 40 to 1. The Browns 35 to 1, slightly better odds. Even the Colts are not, and there's a lot of talk that who the heck is going to be the Colts quarterback next year, right?
Not Carson Wentz.
Yeah, 25 to 1 odds with them. Even a team like the Tennessee Titans, and what's going to happen with they almost have to stick with Tannehill unless they can trade him. 22 to 1 odds for them. And even, let's see, the Denver Broncos, who's going to be the quarterback of the Broncos, 18 to 1 odds.
That's like an Aaron Rodgers hedge right there, probably.
Yeah. Probably is. But I mean, the Green Bay Packers are right there at 15 to 1 odds. So, put it to you this way. I don't blame the odds makers for having the Steelers such long shots from where we sit right now. Sure. I think the next possible window for the Steelers begins in 2023, and that's only if they solve the quarterback issue to some degree.
Right. Yeah, it's very much, and I made this comparison about a year ago about the Patriots. They went through their transitional year and they had their bridge quarterback at Cam Newton, and it wasn't highly successful, and they kind of rebuilt and found their quarterback. back on track. And so that's kind of like the best case scenario, is that one down year, and then you kind of put it together the next year. And again, that's best case. It could be longer than that.
Sure. If you swing and, if you bring in, put it this way, if you don't draft one this year and you go to free agency route and that doesn't work out, well, then what are the odds of, where are you going to go the next year? There, and like it or not, as much optimism as there is to, as I said in the terrible take the other day, to see a team like the Bengals, go from 4-11-1 to the Super Bowl next season there. You can look at a lot of things. Oh man, their line wasn't great. Their running game wasn't great. Their defense was, it was above average. I don't think that's going to go down as the early 2000s Buccaneers or the Ravens defense, right? From early 2000s. Nobody's going to confuse it with that, but they were just good enough there. The key component with both those teams, they had franchise quarterbacks there. Matthew Stafford, obviously being a former first-round draft pick and a guy that you always kind of wondered if he got in the right team and the right system, could he lead a team to the Super Bowl? And then, guy in Joe Burrow, a former first-round draft pick that, seems to have arrived now at this point there. So until the Steelers solve that end of it, can the Steelers continue to make the playoffs with, whoever back there? The answer to that, I think, is yes. Depending on how good the defense is, and can they keep the sack totals and the takeaways up, and can they find a way to run the football? You would think that we've seen they'll be able to run the football to some degree better than they have the last couple of years, but probably thought that this past season as well too. So the common component, like it or not, is the fact that the NFL is a quarterback-driven league. It has been for a while. Either you have one in that top 8 talk that can give you the ability to get to this, not only get to the Super Bowl and win it every year, or you don't. And right now the Steelers don't, for the first time since 2004, 2005, technically, I guess, because I don't think you can count on a rookie quarterback to come in and be that guy there. So until they solve that, you're going to see a lot of preseason odds of the Steelers probably being 25 to 40 odds, toward, that kind of odds that they have right now.
And until they solve that, we'll have the same conversation of everything else looks good but a quarterback. Nothing else matters until you find that guy. And if you don't draft a quarterback this year, you don't get a big name at quarterback, that pushes your window back probably till 2024 as the earliest you can probably reasonably compete, assuming that you get a quarterback in 2023, which is, of course, no guarantee. So you're really, that's why there's that urgency to find that quarterback there, because your window doesn't really even theoretically begin to open until you have that guy on your roster. And even then, of course, nothing's guaranteed because that guy could bust out, and then you're set back 3-4 years.
And you just don't pluck them off the tree and then throw them in there and they turn out to be that guy. I mean, we see year in, year out, teams try to draft quarterbacks in the first round and just they miss more times. It's not a science. If it was, you'd know the guy that you would trade everything you have to go up to get this one guy because it's that important.
Right.
But you just don't know. Now, as I've stated, it's going to take. Now I've reached the stage now, Alex, where it's going to take a lot to get me out of that stage. I really think the Steelers are going to draft a quarterback in the first round, especially if they can get maybe 1 or 2 guys. I bet they have it narrowed down to Pickett and Malik Willis, and I would not be surprised if they even trade up to get one of those 2 guys. Now, whether or not those guys are the guys, that's a whole different discussion that I'm still trying to get watch tape and figure out myself. But I don't be, that's where I'm at right now. I will not be shocked if this team drafts a quarterback in the first round.
Yeah, it's just a question of who and trying to find that guy. If a Willis isn't there, or, just trying to compete and get that guy when you're sitting there pick 20. So it's certainly possible. Would not surprise me. That's kind of where I'm leaning. But, as you said, they're not going to probably like all the options. It's probably 1 or 2 guys they really want to go after. And it's a matter of being able to be in position to acquire that guy, which is going to be the tough part.
Right. Especially at 20, right? I mean, and I get it that it's a and I've said for a while, this quarterback class ain't all that. And the further I dig down into that, the more I understand that it's not all that. But within that, how many times have we seen kind of meh quarterback classes and still, two of them go in the top 15 or so? It's just that if you don't have a quarterback, every quarterback, some of them will tend to look like a Ritz cracker, when they should be viewed on just a plain generic great value saltine, and those guys end up getting drafted. So I don't think there's a guarantee if you stay put at where the Steelers are that you get one of those guys in, let's say, a Pickett or a Malik Willis.
Right. And just the teams top of my head, Detroit, Denver sitting there at pick 9. If they don't get Aaron Rodgers, they're going to be in the market for a quarterback. They passed on Fields last year. They took some flack for that. They probably want to attack quarterback this year, and other teams that want to trade up. So yeah, there aren't going to be quarterbacks taking the top 5, which certainly helps. The odds of Pittsburgh getting potentially their guy being in position to trade up to get somebody, but it's going to be competitive because it's always competitive.
Let's look at the draft order real quick. Obviously, the Jaguars pick first, right? They've got your son's namesake at. All
right.
I find ways to get this in, don't I?
Yes, you do. So does everyone else.
Your son's namesake at quarterback there in Jacksonville there. So they're not going to go quarterback. In fact, I mean, they now are in a perfect position to maybe trade down a couple of spots. Really, if they find somebody.
But who's trading up because that quarterback isn't there to trade up for?
True. The Detroit Lions, they are currently right second, and they could certainly use a quarterback, right?
Right. 2 seems high, though, to take somebody. So is that a trade down? But again, who's going to go up? But Detroit's certainly going to be in the market for a quarterback.
What about the Houston Texans?
I mean, Davis Mills played well. I don't know if he's their franchise guy, and Watson, I assume, won't be there. But that's a whole can of worms that we don't know what's going to happen there, I suppose.
I mean, you're not going to be shocked. I mean, if they don't do something in free agency, they're going to draft a quarterback at some point in this draft, right? They have to.
Yeah, I would think so. But again, 3 seems too high to take any of those guys. But who the heck knows? I mean, if they love somebody, then they may sit there and take Malik Willis.
The Jets and the Giants are next. The Jets are obviously, at least they probably think they got their quarterback there. So it'd be odd for them to take a quarterback there. But what about the Giants?
Yeah, I know Dayball is stood by Daniel Jones, so I'm going to take him at his word there and assume at least this year they're not going to draft a quarterback.
The Panthers picked 6. I mean, they could sure use probably a quarterback, right? Sam Darnold ain't it, right?
I hope not. Yeah, so that's a good point. Yes, Carolina's going to be in the market for that. Definitely.
And then the Giants again at 7. There, and let's see, the Falcons at 8. They could use a guy behind Matt Ryan if they stick with Matt Ryan one more year. Now's a perfect time for them to get a guy that can sit the bench for a year.
Yeah, that's certainly possible. And then Denver at 9 is obviously in play. They don't get Aaron Rodgers or another quarterback.
What's going to happen in Washington at 11?
Yeah, they need somebody. They don't have the long-term option. I don't think Heineke's the long-term guy, maybe a short-term, bridge guy. But, yeah, they'll be in play as well.
Minnesota?
Yeah, that's a funny accent. I don't know what's going to happen with Kirk Cousins. My guess is they won't draft a quarterback in the first round. But, I guess you can't rule it out.
All right, I mean, you even have the Saints picking ahead of the Steelers at 18th overall. What the heck's going to happen there?
Yeah, Jameis might be gone, and, Taysom Hill is not the answer, a new head coach. So, yeah, could they steal away a Pickett right before Pittsburgh? Pittsburgh might have to jump the Saints to be able to make a move.
I mean, so here we are. We've already rattled off at least 5 teams that could potentially be in play that pick ahead of the Steelers that seemingly don't have a franchise quarterback. I mean, if you're a GM right now and you see what's happened to teams like the Bengals. Now, once again, I don't think you draft just to draft, but I mean, you have got to either free agency or draft solve the quarterback position if you're first, second, even a third year GM, right? wherever you are, for whatever team. So that's why even in a down year with a meh kind of quarterback class, I have a feeling that a couple of these guys are still going to go at least in the top 15,
Right. Yeah, I would say top 15. You're going to see probably 2 quarterbacks go. That's Willis, maybe Pickett, and those might be the guys Pittsburgh's looking at the closest.
All right. But anyway, it just goes to show you that the Steelers are probably going to have to go up if they want one of those guys.
Yeah, I think so. So anything else here, Dave? I think we kind of covered the big news and notes from the weekend.
Okay, let's see here. Should we get to the emails? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, let's get to some reader emails and close out today's show.
All right, let me see if I can pull up a couple here real quick here. A couple spam in here.
Any Valentine's Day plans with Tiff?
No, just we're taking a trip out of town there, so
yeah, that's her gift.
A little getaway there. A time with me is not a gift.
Yeah, is there a receipt for
that? Josh Unger writes in, do you think Aaron Rodgers re-signs with the Packers? The Steelers might kick the tires on seeing what it would. He says, do you think if Aaron Rodgers re-signs with the Packers, the Steelers might kick the tires and seeing what it would take to acquire Jordan Love? Seems like he might be a good buy low candidate, assuming the price is actually low. Love the show. You have taught me a ton over the 2 years since I have started listening. Thank you, Josh. Josh, thank you for the email there. Look, I have felt all along that there's no way the Packers are going to let Aaron Rodgers fly the coop. And Jordan Love, although he hasn't played a lot, he hasn't looked great in his limited amount of time that he's been on the field there. So do I think there's a chance that the Packers might be willing to deal Jordan Love this offseason? Yeah, I think there is. And I think it is a potential to buy low, And I don't think you can, we'll obviously see how the Steelers, evaluate this class and all like that. Is it one of those kind of under the radar, maybe type situations where the Steelers might think about acquiring Love from the Packers? Alex, I don't think you can rule it out. No. I'll say that.
No, you can't. It's something to think about, something we probably don't think about a whole lot. I think the first step is just to at least confirm what will happen with Rodgers and go from there and proceed from there. The Packers and the rest of the league will take that approach, I imagine. But it's just a question of how high was Pittsburgh on Love coming out. I don't think they showed any special particular interest in him, but they weren't as quarterback needy as they are currently. So I guess you can't rule it out. But, it is 2 years in the rookie contract. You would have the 5th-year option. I understand that. So there is still some team control there. But you also, ideally would like to have that quarterback under contract for even longer.
Right. His, let's see, he was drafted, 2010?
Yeah.
So
2020, yes, 2 years in.
Yeah. So, I mean, there is time to work with. If you thought he could be the guy for you, there is time to work with. There absolutely there is. Now, the Steelers, once again, are probably not going to be the only team that will be in, that could potentially be in the talk, to maybe trade for Love. So, what's it going to cost as far as, trade collateral and all like that, capital?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know. Obviously, it's not going to be a first-round pick. It might be a third or something like that. I don't know how to really gauge it, considering he hasn't just played much and his showings have been poor. But I think his star was against Kansas City and Arrowhead, a very tough situation to be in. But yeah, anytime a quarterback gets on the block, like everyone comes running to it because there are just so few guys out there.
So, Josh, it's a good question, and one I don't think you can slam dunk sit here and say absolutely not. There's no way. It could. Do I think that's the way the Steelers will go? No, but I'm not going to sit here and say that you can rule that out either.
Yeah, agreed. Agree with you.
Let's see what else we have here in the Twitter machine here.
Anything else?
Malik Willis. No, I think we've hit. I think people were tied up with the Super Bowl and all. So I think we only had the one. Let's see, one in there right now. So good time to call this podcast after about an hour and a half here, I think, here, and we'll see what Alex can whip up for you people later on in the week until I return. So any other final thoughts, Alex?
Nope. Enjoy your trip. Have a great, safe time with you and Tiff. And yeah, again, I think we'll do one more podcast this week. It might be for Wednesday. It might be for Friday. Just if nothing happens, the next day, then I'm not going to do a show for Wednesday because there's not a whole lot new to discuss. So I might save that for Friday. And then I guess next week you're not going to be back either, right, Dave? And so Josh and I maybe we'll do some stuff next week, at least early part of next week as well.
Right. I don't think I'm going to come back until a week from Saturday. We'll see.
Okay, good deal. Well, enjoy your trip, and everyone else is stuck with me for the next week, so I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, they probably consider it a gift because there's no me in there. So anyway, you'll put together some nice shows there. So in the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and you want to donate to the cause, go to SteelersDepot.com. A lot of draft profiles starting to go up on the site now. I think we're closing in on the 40 of them already here. So, and we got access to a lot of film this year as well, too. So those will continue here throughout these next couple of weeks here. One thing we didn't hit on real quick there is no movement on the Ben Roethlisberger contract yet. Not that it was guaranteed to happen, but now that the Super Bowl has come and gone, a lot of contracts are going to have those void years void 5 days after the Super Bowl. So that's one thing we'll be watching. Alex and the group will be watching next week. There's to see if there's any manipulation with the Ben Roethlisberger void language or whatnot. But in the meantime, let's see. Once again, if you want an ad-free version of the site, go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button. So have a great time, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. And as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.